Hey everyone, welcome in. It is a Thursday edition of the Utopia Football Podcast. Great to be with you. I'm Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610. Just got back from NRG Stadium, where the Texans had what amounts to a final walkthrough before their preseason game on Saturday against the Giants. So not a ton to report in terms of practice, like a typical practice report, because there was no contact out there. It was largely a walkthrough, but there are some nuggets that I can provide. But this will be a quick episode. I'll have a separate episode previewing Saturday's game with the Giants and some things to watch for in that game. So let's just start with, off the top, just some nuggets from being out at the stadium. Again, the practice was inside NRG Stadium, so we were down on the field. The media was in the end zone where the Texans were doing a lot of their work, a lot of 7-on-7, some 11-on-11, but all really walk-through stuff, nothing that was being done at full speed out there. There were a few people that were tweeting out, that were there, media members tweeting out about interceptions by guys and touchdowns, things like that, as if these were reps that were equivalent of regular training camp reps. They were not, at least in my eyes, they were not. They were the guys were not going full speed in these drills. So I would say take any reports about stuff like that with a grain of salt. I don't think there was anything going on out there today that moves the needle on a position battle or anything like that. So there's that. The only real nuggets that I have as far from being in the stadium at the practice is, as we know, there were two panels knocked out of the roof of NRG Stadium. And when I say panels, you have to understand the roof goes, I'll just say the roof goes lengthwise from south to north or north to south, however you do it. The length of the football field. There are panels that go kind of horizontal, perpendicular to that direction. Anyways, they go, the panels go the entire width of NRG Stadium. So when a whole panel gets knocked out, there's literally an entire strip of the roof that's gone. I don't know how big the panels are, but there appear to be two full panels out. Okay, so there are holes in the roof that are the entire width of NRG Stadium. And there's one that is allowing sunlight through onto the south stands. That the south end would be the end that is that's towards the 610 loop. And then there's another entire panel that's a little further north of that, that's over the 20, 25 yard line, kind of the south end of the field. We were in there at noon, which is a kickoff time for both this Saturday and next Saturday. So we got a pretty good feel for what it's going to look like at kickoff in terms of sitting in the sun. The temperature of the stadium is cool. So if you have tickets to the game on Saturday, I don't think you're going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to be any more uncomfortable in NRG Stadium on Saturday than you would have been this season at Minute Maid Park. Minute Maid Park has been kind of brutal this year, at least the games I've been to, in terms of the AC inside. It's been hot inside that stadium. It was pretty comfortable. Now, there's only a few hundred of us there. There wasn't thousands of people like there will be this Saturday. But I would say, if I attach a PSA to this report about the stadium, if you have seats in the lower bowl in the south end zone, there's probably like a 50 to 60% chance that you're going to be sitting in the sun. I don't know if it's going to be just a haunting, sweltering sun, but you are sitting right where the sun comes through the hole in the roof. And I'm talking like across the width of the south end of the stadium. So just know, I don't know what section numbers those are, but if you listen to this podcast and you're a season ticket holder, you kind of know what end of the stadium your seats are on. The south end is the end where the opposing team enters. If you have a seat in the south end zone, then the opposing team comes into your right in from that tunnel. So that's what it looked like from inside the stadium. I'll say this too: there's a lot of new design work going on in the stadium in terms of the new logo and the new fonts and the new colors. The end zones look pretty badass. They're really a dark blue. It's the uniform colors, and it's got that H-Town H logo in the end zone now to go along with the normal Texans logo and the word Houston in the end zone. So they kind of changed the color scheming around to match the uniforms. So that's just marketing 101, baby. So those are really the only nuggets I have from practice, like stadium stuff, from being inside the stadium. As far as things going on around the team, probably the biggest thing would be trade rumors swirling. And I'll start with Matthew Judon, who just got traded from New England to Atlanta for a third-round pick. The report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.com is that the Texans were one of a few teams that were at least inquiring about Matthew Judon's availability. Again, he ends up going for a third-round pick. I don't know if Atlanta's going to sign him to a new deal. Part of why he was sideways with New England is he wanted a new contract. Judon's an older player on the last year of his deal, coming off injury last year. But when he hasn't been injured in 2021 and 2022, that has looked like a really good signing for the New England Patriots. He's been a double-digit sack guy. Back in 2021, after Nick Caserio left, the Patriots started spending like drunken sailors, and a lot of the signings didn't work out. The Judon signing has actually been a good one for the Patriots. So he's scheduled to make $6.5 million this year. It could very well be. They don't have a contract agreed to, Judon in Atlanta. But it could very well be that Judon just doesn't want to play for a shitty football team. New England's going to suck this year. So he'll be playing for Atlanta, who I think is favored in the NFC South right now. I don't think they're a great team. I think they're an okay team in a bad division. Better than playing for the Patriots. So I thought it was interesting that the Texans, again, according to Jeremy Fowler, would be in on Matthew Judon. I don't know what to read into that, other than D'Amico Ryans loves to get his hands on as many good players, especially on the defensive line, as possible. He was kind of asked about it by Jonathan Alexander at his press conference today. D'Amico was. Jonathan kind of asked the question without using Judon's name, just asking if you're looking for depth at the defensive end position, given some of the injuries, right? Danico Autry is going to be suspended to start the year. Will Anderson hasn't practiced in a while. D'Amico just went very bland in general and said, we're always looking for good players. So I fully believe that Nick Caserio probably inquired about Judon and his availability. And I also see that when the price gets to a third-round pick and or Judon looking for a new contract, that Nick would walk away. Now, it could be that the Texans were willing to give up a third, but New England chose to take Atlanta's third over the Texans because it's going to be a better third-round pick. In all likelihood, I think the Texans are going to be better than Atlanta this year. So the Texans pick would be further down. You want to pick as high as possible. There were some people asking today on Payne and Pendergast, do you read into the interest in Matthew Judon? Is there anything you read into it with respect to Will Anderson's injury? And I would say no. I saw Will at practice today. He wasn't suited up for practice. I doubt he plays on Saturday. But he looked to be walking around fine. He was joking around with the media. He wasn't acting like somebody who's got an injury that's so severe that you've got to go trading for another high-level player. So I'm guessing Will's going to be fine. So that was interesting. The other interesting thing, and this kind of is combo trade rumors and walkthrough notes, is Davis Mills. So Davis Mills, team gets back from the Hall of Fame game. We know the Steeler game. And the Hall of Fame game, I guess. They hadn't been home since before either of these first two preseason games. And we know that Davis Mills played pretty well in both preseason games. Played, I thought, really well in the Hall of Fame game, and I thought he did some good things against the Steelers. So he's had two good games. And then he got back here to Houston, and he did not practice on Sunday. He was in street clothes on Sunday. He was back in uniform for practices this week, but didn't really do much. And then today was in street clothes again, and then left the walkthrough, left the stadium, left the field, and then went back, presumably back into the locker room or treatment room or whatever. Again, we don't know if Davis is hurt or if they're holding him out because maybe they're looking to move him. And a lot of the speculation is centered around Minnesota because J.J. McCarthy went out with a knee injury this week, a meniscus tear. And so the thought is that maybe that Minnesota might be looking at Davis Mills. They run a similar system to the Texans, so they could slide him in there. There's a chance Davis Mills is a better football player than Sam Darnold, who's going to be the starter for Minnesota. I was already going to be the starter, but now that J.J. McCarthy, the rookie, is out, Sam Darnold doesn't have really any competition in camp right now for that job. So I don't know what to think of that. As if Davis is the target of trade rumors or whatever, I think a couple things. One, keep in mind Davis was out on Sunday. Didn't practice on Sunday. I don't know that any news of J.J. McCarthy's knee surfaced until earlier this week. So it could very well be that Davis was missing practices before anybody even knew that J.J. McCarthy had a meniscus. Secondly, as far as if Nick Caserio were to be looking at moving Davis Mills, I would not move him for anything less than a day 2 pick, which would mean a second or third rounder. And I know there's a few people that just would dump Davis Mills for a day 3 pick or a 5th or 6th rounder. I wouldn't do that. You've built a team that you expect to go compete for a Super Bowl. And certainly if anything were to happen to CJ Stroud, that takes a big hit. But this is a very well-built roster. Teams have plugged in backup quarterbacks before and gone on to win Super Bowls. So I think you want to make sure that you've got as much firepower, as much ammo, as much potential for someone to game manage their way through games as possible, which means it's not an either or with Davis Mills or Case Keenum for me. It's I keep both guys. Tim Boyle is off to the side. I don't think Tim Boyle is a factor in all this. If you were to trade Davis Mills, Tim Boyle does become a factor, the 4th stringer, because now he's your 3rd stringer, unless the Texans go find a quarterback on the street. And the only real wild card sitting out there right now that I would trust to play in an important game would be Ryan Tannehill. So a lot of moving parts here. I tend to think this is more Davis is dealing with something right now as opposed to they're shopping Davis Mills. I'm perfectly content to be wrong on that, though. And if they move Davis Mills and they get a significant draft pick for him, then let's go. But for me, it's got to be a pick 3rd round at the latest for me on Davis Mills. I know some of you out there don't necessarily agree with that, but that's how I feel about it. So those rumors are swirling around right now. As far as other things surrounding the walkthrough today, the only real significant thing, all the same guys who have been banged up and working out off to the side were working out off to the side again today. So guys like Will Anderson, Noah Brown, Tim Settle, Skoranek, handful of other guys that have not been practicing this week. I don't expect to see them in the game. Joe Mixon is back in uniform. He was back practicing yesterday in 11-on-11. He did not do any of the walkthrough, either 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 today. He was in uniform, just kind of walking around, chopping it up with his teammates, but he didn't do anything today. Damian Pierce took the first set of reps with the ones. So I would read the tea leaves there and think that there's a good chance Joe Mixon does not play on Saturday. I hope he does. I'd like to see him get out there for a few carries in a Texans uniform. If he doesn't, his first carries will probably be in week 1 against Indianapolis. He's a pro. He's an old pro. But I would like to see him get out there maybe for a few carries on Saturday. But if today's walkthrough is any indication, I don't know that that's going to be the case. Other than that, this was a walkthrough. So there was not much to report in the way of guys making plays, securing roster spots, or anything like that. So there you go. Next podcast will be a preview of the Giants coming to town. The podcast after that on Saturday after the game will be a recap of the game. So busy week, busy training camp. I'm loving this. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Quick reminder to subscribe to the podcast. Hit that subscribe button so you get it automatically. Tell a friend too. Make that your resolution. Tell one friend about the Utopia Football Podcast. I would greatly appreciate that. And a reminder, especially if you're watching on the stream right now, you can see it at the bottom of the screen. The mailbag, the address, houmailbag@gmail.com. So for Anthony Irwin, my producer, I'm Sean Pendergast. We will see you guys tomorrow for a preview of Texans-Giants preseason. 3rd game for the Texans, 2nd game for the Giants. We'll see y'all tomorrow with that. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.